Muammar Gaddafi, Libya's enigmatic and autocratic ruler for over 4 decades, met a violent and ignominious end in 2011. His fall marked the culmination of a complex interplay of internal dissent, regional uprisings, and international intervention. The events leading to Gaddafi's demise were dramatic and chaotic, reshaping Libya's political landscape and impacting global geopolitics. Gaddafi seized power in a 1969 coup d'etat, overthrowing King Idris I. As a young and ambitious military officer, he quickly established himself as the leader of the Libyan Arab Republic, promoting a unique blend of Arab nationalism, socialism, and Islamic values. Gaddafi's Green Book outlined his political philosophy, which rejected both capitalism and communism, proposing instead a form of direct democracy called Jamahiriya. Under his rule, Libya initially experienced significant economic growth, driven by the nationalization of oil industries. However, Gaddafi's erratic policies, human rights abuses, and sponsorship of international terrorism increasingly isolated Libya from the global community. By the early 2000s, Gaddafi attempted to reintegrate Libya into the international fold, renouncing terrorism and dismantling his country's weapons of mass destruction programs. Despite these efforts, domestic discontent simmered beneath the surface. Economic disparities, high unemployment, political repression, and widespread corruption fueled popular resentment. Inspired by the Arab Spring uprisings that swept across North Africa and the Middle East in 2011, Libyans took to the streets in February of that year, demanding an end to Gaddafi's rule. The protests quickly escalated into a full-scale civil war, with rebel factions forming the National Transitional Council, NTC, to coordinate their efforts against the regime. As Gaddafi's forces launched brutal crackdowns on dissent, the international community responded with increasing alarm. Reports of atrocities, including the indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas and mass executions, galvanized global action. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 1973 in March 2011, authorizing a no-fly zone over Libya and all necessary measures to protect civilians. NATO subsequently launched Operation Unified Protector, a military intervention aimed at enforcing the UN mandate. The coalition conducted airstrikes against Gaddafi's military infrastructure, significantly weakening his forces and bolstering the rebel offensive. This intervention, while controversial, played a crucial role in tipping the balance of power in favor of the rebels. The conflict reached a decisive turning point in August 2011, when rebel forces launched a coordinated assault on the capital, Tripoli. After months of intense fighting, Gaddafi's grip on the city weakened, and his loyalists began to defect. By late August, the rebels had seized control of key government buildings, signaling the collapse of the regime. Gaddafi, however, remained defiant. He retreated to his hometown of Sirte, vowing to fight to the death. Despite his rhetoric, the reality was that his forces were in disarray, and his support base had dwindled. On October 20, 2011, Gaddafi's 42-year rule came to a brutal end. Rebel fighters captured him hiding in a drainage pipe in Sirte. The circumstances of his capture were chaotic and violent, reflecting the anarchic state of Libya at the time. Gaddafi was beaten and sodomized with a bayonet before being shot dead. Videos of his capture and death circulated globally, symbolizing both the end of an era and the violent upheaval that had engulfed Libya. The fall of Gaddafi did not usher in the peace and stability many had hoped for. Instead, Libya descended into chaos, with various militias vying for control. The NTC struggled to establish authority, and the country soon splintered along tribal, regional, and ideological lines. Libya's transition to democracy was marred by violence, political infighting, and the proliferation of armed groups. Efforts to draft a new constitution and hold elections faced numerous setbacks. By 2014, the country was effectively split between two rival governments: the internationally recognized House of Representatives based in Tobruk and the Islamist-dominated General National Congress in Tripoli. The power vacuum also created opportunities for extremist groups like ISIS to establish a presence in Libya, further destabilizing the region. The humanitarian crisis worsened, with thousands of Libyans fleeing the violence, contributing to the refugee crisis in Europe. The fall of Gaddafi had significant repercussions beyond Libya's borders. It highlighted the complexities and unintended consequences of international intervention. While NATO's involvement helped topple a tyrant, it also exposed the challenges of post-conflict reconstruction and the risks of creating power vacuums. Moreover, the Libyan crisis had a ripple effect across the Sahel region. The proliferation of weapons and the return of mercenaries who had fought for Gaddafi exacerbated conflicts in Mali, Niger, and beyond. The destabilization contributed to the rise of militant groups and further undermined regional security. Gaddafi's legacy is a contentious one. To some, he was a revolutionary who sought to free Libya from colonial and imperialist influences. To others, he was a tyrant who ruled through fear and violence, squandering Libya's wealth and potential. His fall underscores the broader struggles of autocratic regimes in adapting to the demands of their people and the pressures of the modern world.